the mortal realm. It indeed was the mortal realm, because depicted within the painting were crammed houses, dense forests, and crowds. Yet they were all submerged in a vast, endless sea of fire and floating lava. The houses and trees were ablaze. Flames burned on those people's bodies, and they were screaming. Those twisted faces were drawn so realistically that Tian could almost hear their wails next to his ears. In the center of the painting, there was a vibrantly red mountain glowing from the heat, like a giant kiln, exceedingly horrifying. The fire and lava were all spewed from this mountain. The meaning of this mural is volcanic eruption, the fall of the kingdom of Wuyong, Tian pondered. Yes and no, Ho Chang said. It dawned on Tian. It certainly wasn't completely right, because this is a dream. The portrayal of the tragedy at the bottom of the painting should be a depiction of the Crown Prince of Wuyong's dream. The Crown Prince of Wuyong and the 4 guardian deputies were surrounded by golden light, meaning that at this time he had already ascended. He was in the middle of being tormented by a dream, so the content of the dream state had lines and colors that were more hollow in contrast with the reality. Some heavenly officials possessed enormous spiritual might, their talents abnormally incredible. When they saw minuscule omens, they could peek into the future in their dreams. This is what they called prophecy dreams. Had this dream state of His Highness the Crown Prince become reality? Was this how the kingdom of Wuyong fell? Humming for a moment, Tian remarked, "There must be someone who wanted to tell us something. The story in this mural should be the continuation from the previous one. I think the closer we get to the kiln, the more our questions will be answered." Just then, Ling Wen, who was watching outside the windows, spoke up. "Everyone, there's something I must ask. Don't you all think it's strange?" "What's strange?" Pei Ming asked. "Not sure if I remembered wrong, but have those 2 mountain bluffs ever been this close?" he asked. Everyone looked out the windows. Sure enough, when they had entered earlier, the mountain bluff outside was about 3 meters away. But now it was extremely close, like it was going to press into them at any moment. Tian was about to go and check, but he heard a series of weird crackling and creaking sounds, like the disturbance of earth and trees, bricks and stones being pressured. Now everyone had sensed it. What's going on? The bricks under their feet were quivering. The ceiling above their heads was also shaking. 1 piece, 2 pieces, many pieces of debris and dust were falling. Is it an earthquake? Pei Ming wondered. Just as the words left his lips, the walls were already cracking into shocking wrinkles from the pressure. "It's not an earthquake," Tian exclaimed. "It's..." The mountain bluffs on either side were pushing into the divine temple of Wuyong, sitting in its middle. There was no time to explain. He shouted, "Run!" No need for him to tell them. Pei Ming had already kicked down a wall and opened an exit. The group broke through the wall and exited, running forward. However, they were still running within the divine temple of Wuyong. This temple palace was long and deep, and other than the great hall, there were still many side chambers, small chambers, incense rooms, training halls, and so on. Thus the group had to keep running and keep breaking down walls, kicking down doors. It was times like these that a martial guard's typical way of doing things really helped. However, they had only crossed through 2 little chambers before a giant boulder the size of half a man crashed through the roof, falling heavily next to Tian's feet. Giant boulders were falling from atop the 2 mountain bluffs on either side. The rumbling noises were endless as more and more rocks fell from the skies. Large ones were like water barrels, small ones were the size of heads. They dropped from high in the sky, their powers astounding. Fortunately, there was a layer of roof blocking them, and everyone's physical abilities were considerable, allowing them to be able to dodge in time. Only Hua Cheng was completely at ease. As Shilian ran and dodged, he suddenly heard Hua Cheng beckon him. "Gege, wanna come here?" He turned his head back to look. Hua Cheng was following closely behind him, his steps steady like he was flying. He was holding a red umbrella that he had taken out from who knows where and was smiling brightly at him from underneath it. Those fallen rocks were soundly crashing onto the surface of the umbrella, but Hua Cheng held the handle with a single hand without swaying. Shilian instantly took cover under his umbrella. "Phew, that was close. Thank goodness for Sanlang," he said. Sanlang smiled and very considerately leaned the umbrella more to his side. "Come closer here." Even though it wasn't the right time, Shilian still felt his heart skip a beat in spite of himself. "Are you tired holding this up?" he asked. "How about I hold the umbrella for you?" The others were fleeing and dodging, running madly. Seeing how the two were having a good time, they couldn't stand it and couldn't help but call out, "Hey, isn't that unfair? Hua Chengju, may I ask if you have any spare umbrellas? Can I hide under that umbrella too?" Hua Cheng smiled vaguely and answered no and no. Under the objections of others, Shilian was feeling a little embarrassed. He mumbled, "Oh, this mountain sure is strange." And he was about to sneak away as he spoke, but Hua Cheng stopped him unnoticeably. He leisurely explained, "Gege is right. This mountain is certainly strange. Strange spiritually. There are 3 mountains in Mount Tonglu. They are called old age, sickness, and death. Although they're not any different from other mountains, they can move as they will within the perimeters of Mount Tonglu, so some would take them as Mount Tonglu's landmarks." Fallen rocks continued to crash down violently, but it was peace and harmony under the umbrella. Shilian replied, "I see. So before that time when Guan was disguised as the swift, life-extinguishing blade demon, the mountain that was blocking our way was one of those 3 mountain spirits." Lingwen was bumping up and down on Peisu's back, but still tried arduously to converse. No wonder this divine temple of Wuyong was so strangely built in the middle of the valley. Its original location was probably not so curious, and it was those 2 mountain spirits that came attacking on their own. "But birth, old age, sickness, and death are a set," Shilian said. "Since there's old age, sickness, and death, where's birth?" "Regrettably, there's no birth. At least, I've never seen it before," Hua Cheng replied. "Meaning, there's no chance for life here, is that it? How cruel," Shilian said. Immediately after, Banyue exclaimed, "The mountain bluffs are still coming closer." When they had first entered the valley, the mountain path was about a couple of kilometers wide, growing narrower as they walked. When they approached the gates of the Wuyong temple, the road was no more than 30 meters wide. And now, the space between the 2 mountain bluffs was less than 10 meters, and the building and walls were all cracking and bending from the pressure. Since the divine temple of Wuyang employed stone beams and other such solid construction materials, it was wedged between the 2 mountains that were simultaneously pushing closer. However, it might not last for much longer. Fleming yelled, "Neither forward nor backward is possible, so let's break through the roof and go upward. the shower of rocks is nothing. Just break them to pieces. However, Xielin exclaimed, we can't. Right now, there's the temple wedged between. If we go upward, what if the two mountain spirits throw a smacking blow or something? We'll be clapped to death. During their exchange, the two sides were pushing closer even faster, rumbling and quaking. The space that they were in had become less than 6 meters in width. Under such circumstances, Lingwen was still immobile, and he couldn't help but cry out. Can everyone please come up with something faster? I don't want to get squished to death. Thank you. Fire was burning their behinds, but ideas didn't just come so easily. As the space continued to shrink, shrinking to only the length of a person, Pei suddenly gave a loud shout and leapt up sideways. His arms were pushed against the mountain on the left, and his legs pushed against the one on the right, his entire person becoming a spike, wedging sideways between the two large mountains. Even if I'm gonna be squished to death, I don't want to be fucking squished to death by those two shits. I'll hold them down for now. You guys hurry and think of something, he yelled. Everyone was stunned by his deed, and Lingwen arduously gave him a thumbs up. Old Pei, what a man. Pei Ming gritted his teeth. You're welcome, he yelled. There was no need to explain a martial god strength. Those two mountain bluffs were still trying to press closer, but they seemed to have been obtrusively stopped by Pei Ming, and they fell into a stalemate. However, this was Pei Ming exerting all the spiritual powers he possessed, and would surely not last. As Xielin was rapidly spinning his wheels, trying to come up with a way to escape, the two mountain spirits were slowly gaining the upper hand, forcing Pei Ming's knees to bend. Seeing that the situation was not going in their favor, Pei Su cried, General, I'll come assist you. He tossed Lingwen, who was leaning on his shoulders, to Banyue, and also joined the ranks of human spikes. However, he was but a mortal at the moment, so how could he use spiritual power? The brocade immortal on Lingwen could have been useful, but he was too much of a risk, and releasing him might be adding oil to flame, like stepping on a venomous snake after falling into a nest of jackals. Thus Banyue put Lingwen down and said, Me too. However, she had the body of a little girl after all. Her limbs were nowhere near the length of the two grown men's, and she was too short to wedge between the walls, so she clapped her palms onto Pei Su's back, transferring spiritual power to him. The powers of the two combined exploded, their faces both red and their veins popping. As for Hua Cheng, whose powers were the strongest in the group, he was only watching them as he twirled the red umbrella in his hand, not the least bit concerned. Suddenly, Xielin pounded a fist in his own palm and cried, I've got it! I've got it! I've got it! I've got it! He'd gotten an idea. Xielin said, Since going forward, backward, or upward won't work, then we'll go downward. Let's dig a hole and hide for the moment. Lingwen instantly latched on. Good idea. Will you please start on it right now? Pei Ming said while gritting his teeth. Then, please hurry. Okay, Xielin responded, while already crazily slashing at the ground with Feng Xin to drill a pit, sand and earth flying all over the place. Next to him, Hua Cheng was holding the umbrella over him, and not only was he not helping, he was even coaxing him. Go, don't dig anymore. Sit down and rest. No one could take it anymore, and they all cried, Hua Chengju. Did someone call me? Hua Cheng said. Lingwen laid on the ground in a heap. Hua Chengju, both yourself and His Highness are here too. If you have any tricks or ideas, how about you contribute? None of us want to become stuffing between rock planks, after all. In the words no one dared say, if you don't have anything, can you please go and become a human spike too? Although Shilian was anxious, he was still instinctively trusting of Hua Cheng. So he asked as he continued to dig the pit, Sunlang, you have a way? Hua Cheng chuckled. Gogo only needs to wait. No need for you to do anything. It'll be fine in a moment. Fire was burning their behinds now, and although everyone felt that he must have an idea, they still couldn't help but feel the burn. Lingwen was about to say more when Shilian suddenly said, What's that noise? Amidst the loud rumbling of falling boulders came another strange noise, approaching rapidly. Rapidly fast, growing closer and closer. Shilian thought the sound was familiar, like he'd heard it before somewhere. And he stopped his mad digging. Could this be? Just as the words left his lips, a spot next to his feet suddenly caved in, revealing a black hole that was big enough to allow 2 people to drop in. Within the hole, the head of a shovel was raised, reflecting a bright, white light. It was the sacred shovel of the Earth Master. That shovel showed itself, but quickly shrank back into the hole. Hua Cheng spoke up. A little late, but at least he made it. Let's go. Without another word, Shilian picked up Lingwen and threw him down. Then he threw Banyue and Peisu, and then Pei Ming. With the spike wedged in the middle gone, the 2 mountain spirits increased their speed, and amidst the scratching, quaking sounds, Hua Cheng circled his arm around Shilian's waist and held him tight. Let's hurry, he yelled. Then with him in his arms, they jumped into the underground pond. Shilian felt like he was sinking into darkness, and soon after, a thundering roar came from above. Those 2 large mountains had finally completely pressed themselves together. If they were still above ground right now, they would have for sure been crushed into meat pancakes. After taking a moment to steady the spirit somewhat, 2 small balls of flame were ignited in the darkness. Shilian looked around at the underground path that they were situated in at the moment. Neither wide nor narrow, neat and orderly, as expected of the path dug by the sacred shovel of the Earth Master. The others who had dropped in first were all sprawled on the ground, huffing. Hua Cheng released his waist, and Shilian also dropped the arm that had unconsciously gripped his shoulder, watching that black-clad man holding the shovel. That black-clad man was also breathing harshly, leaning against the shovel and wiping at his cold sweat. Shilian took a few steps forward, looking over him closely. This individual appeared to be a neat and tidy youth, considerably handsome, but only about a 7. Also, he didn't seem to have much personality. No doubt, he must be someone whose presence was usually very faint. Shilian approached him, and that black-clad man looked up. Your Highness. But before he finished, Shilian had already seized his wrist. Where's the Lord Windmaster? That black-clad man was taken aback. Huh? I don't know. Shilian exhaled and said solemnly, My Lord Blackwater, why keep up the act? Your revenge is none of my business. But Lord Windmaster did once share a friendship with you, and had never committed any crime or harm, so I hope. Just then, Lingwen interrupted. Blackwater? Your Highness, why do you think he's Blackwater? Their faces are different. This face is so boringly plain, not noticeable in a crowd at all, so it must be a fake. The trick to disguise was discussed before, and the face of this black-clad youth before them perfectly complied to the key component of an impeccable fake skin, boringly plain. Even if one was to stare at this face for 2 hours, after a good night's sleep, his appearance would be completely forgotten the next day. So no doubt, this was a molded, fake face. However, a moment later, that black-clad youth said, "I'm sorry, Your Highness, but I really do look like this." Ho Chang walked over too and lightly cleared his throat. "Good. This really isn't Blackwater. This really is his true appearance." So this was a real, naturally born, pedestrian face. Tian slapped his forehead with his palm, and a moment later, he changed to pressing his hands together in prayer, inclining to bow in apology. "I'm sorry," he said. He actually thought things so matter-of-factly. He actually said to this person's face that he looked boringly plain, not noticeable in a crowd. It couldn't be helped. That face of his was really too much of a model for the perfect disguise. That black-clad youth was also feeling extremely awkward, and he waved his hand. "Don't worry, it's nothing. I'm already used to it." Ling Wen then said, "Your Highness Yin Yu, thank goodness for your assistance."